views presented in this program are not meant to express the specific views of the Levato Bible Fellowship. You are listening to the Vigilance Radio Network.
Testing 1, 2, 3, and there we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Culture and Sanity. This is episode number 6 or something like that. This is our season finale as we end out June here. We close things down here at Aletheia at the end of June, and so we've had some of our other podcasts, and this is our end for the season. We might come back later in the year for some special episodes or something like that, but this is technically our season finale, so just out the gate I want to say thank you to our guests, our guest pastors who have come on this season, Dan and David and Mike, and yeah, Pastor Monty. Obviously, Pastor Monty's not here right now, but we have another man who you've never seen in this show. This is Pastor James of Aletheia, so say hi, James.
Hi, James.
There you go. Pastor Monty is on vacation right now, so we have our other elder here at the church filling in and making his debut appearance on the show. So thanks for being here, James.
Absolutely.
So yeah, let's get right into it then. Like I said, final episode of the season. So let's have a good discussion. Things on the docket, as you might have seen via our Facebook post or whatever, but we have a topic about Chrissy Teigen and the art or the lost art of forgiveness, perhaps. Some things circulating around her, and she's always been a very in the spotlight, sort of weighing in and having her opinion be known, and so she's culturally present, seems like, all the time, for better or for worse. There's an interesting article which I'm kind of gonna surprise you with, James.
Oh.
But maybe you read it. You stay pretty up to date on the news. But regarding or surrounding the video game developer that created that Five Nights at Freddies series. You know the series?
Yes.
You know sort of anything about what's going on with him?
No,
Okay.
I must have missed that.
Like I said, I sort of pulled that last second. It's nothing to
Okay.
what I can fill you in, and I fill the viewers in. So there's some stuff circulating around him and his proposed cancellation, I guess. Always people being canceled these days. It seems to be always what we're talking about. Demi Levato is, speaking up and telling us all about her truth and the beauty in that. That's sarcastic. And then Nickelodeon. There's a topic about Nickelodeon in the news lately about potentially the potential significance of their decline in viewership. And then if there's time, maybe we dip into a little bit about Cruella. I just saw that movie this week. James has not seen the movie, but he, as he says, has read all about it.
I've read all about it. That's as much as I'm.
James has read. He says he's read the reviews, read the spoilers, read the points of worth noting, especially from our standpoint.
That's how I find out if I want to watch something.
Yeah, he's weird. You're weird in that way. You find out all about it and then decide if it's worth watching or not.
I'm a read the book type of guy instead of waiting for the movie. So
gotcha. So yeah, let's get into it. Those are the things on the docket. As always, we may make it to 2 or just one of those things because that's how things go here. But okay, so first up. Chrissy Teigen has been, as I said, in the spotlight within the last couple weeks since we last came on. Yeah, she's always, on social media. She's always, doing the circuit of, different talk shows. She's on different shows, She's an outspoken voice of the culture.
Yeah.
I would say. Well, she's recently been... I don't know. She hasn't technically been canceled, but she's getting maybe close to it or something, because some of her previous tweets or social media posts of some kind have popped up, and basically she's straight up bullying people and being like cruel, which she seems to have a pattern of being. She's not a particularly I don't know, without being too mean, she's not a particularly like pleasant person, it would seem, at least from her public whatever. And then according to her social media posts. But anyway, so she has got these things that have popped up, and there's an outrage mob, as there always tends to be around any topic or any person. There's an outrage mob about her past, I guess, indiscretions and cyberbullying and this and that, and so people are basically calling for her head.
Right.
Her head, not physically.
Price to be paid.
Yeah, price to be paid. So there's an article which our producer can post about asking the question of whether or not we should forgive Chrissy Teigen, whether it's possible to forgive her, which I find it to be, as I was reading the article, I just find it to be sort of almost just laughable from the start of the article. Like, the question is literally posed in the article, like, can we forgive her? It's almost like the author is like really doing a soul search.
Right.
In the heart of hearts, can I forgive this person for what she's done?
It's the crime above all crimes, right?
Yeah. So I guess initial thoughts before I ask a pointed question, James.
Well, I mean, I have been giving it some thought. I came to the conclusion I'm really glad that I did not grow up in a society that...
Or without social media.
Right. I didn't grow up, with everything that I thought or decided to post because, they didn't do that when I was growing up, right? So, because I'm sure there's plenty of things that I was immature on.
Sure.
Plenty of things that I said.
Wait, really?
What? Don't cancel me now.
Yeah.
But there's plenty of things that I probably would, if there was a record of it, look back on and go, oh man, I can't believe that I actually said that.
Right.
What was I thinking at that point in time? I think what's, just first thought, really interesting about this is she doesn't really seem too worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, she did have and you can see it in the article. She did have like a long, maybe like an Instagram post or something like that. And, yeah, maybe I could see how you would see that. Like, she doesn't seem worried about it in terms of how it will affect her, I guess, career.
Right.
She did, express contrition on some level in the post. What I thought was weird at the end of her post, though, that almost undid the tone of her post, and if you might already know what I'm talking about, was like at the end of her apology post, because she posts some like long Instagram, I've cried about this so much you guys wouldn't believe, and you have no idea how deeply sorry I am and regret that, all these kinds of things she said, which are fine and maybe good, but at the end of her post, she, like I said, she almost sort of undoes the tone of contrition, because she like says, she says something like, I send nothing but love out to everyone, even people who may hate me, and I understand if you hate me, I send you love. And he's like, isn't that annoying? She says, like, isn't that annoying that I still love you guys? It's almost like she's like she's trying to take control back. Like, look, the control isn't yours to have. That's the point of forgiveness.
Right.
The forgiveness, asking for forgiveness is giving up control to the other party.
Definitely doesn't seem sincere when you throw something like that at the end of it type of thing. It's like, okay, so you spent the time and you have this nice long dialogue apologizing, and then you end it with that, which kind of makes it seem like, why did you even bother?
Yeah, it's like she made light of it at the end or something like that, and then it was a really weird thing in her post, but... Yeah, so I guess back to the article or to the question, but is our culture a forgiving one? Is it possible to, of course, from our standpoint, our standpoint versus the culture standpoint, but how does the culture decide if they're going to, I think it was you that posted an article a couple weeks back about uncancel culture.
Yes. And
the phenomenon of uncancel culture, which isn't necessarily a new thing, but are we going to start seeing a pattern of it because of, you know, all these different people who have come to light in the last 2 or 3 years or whatever, and, you know, with things like Me Too or whatever. Not a necessarily new thing, though, and it cites someone like Roman Polanski, you know, as being successful post his major, you know, indictment.
Or the return of, you know, Kevin Spacey.
Right,
you know,
right.
those types of
So
things.
the rise of uncancel culture. But how does our culture decide how they're going to forgive someone, if they're going to forgive someone? By what metric are they using? Like, what can you sort of gauge from that?
Well,
you know, she's asking for forgiveness, and the article is saying, can we forgive her? Like, what's too far? What's too much? You know, like, how do we even go about that? How do we accept Chrissy Teigen back into our lives?
The tone of the article, quite honestly, pardon me, the tone of the article, quite honestly, is, you know, you would think that she had you know, murdered somebody through the offense that's being taken here. And I think that's what makes it difficult to gauge who's going to be even uncanceled versus, you know, forgiven for what's going on. It's an individual choice that people are making to be offended by some words that somebody said. The words have now, it's no longer sticks and stones. Will break my bones and words will never hurt me. Words are the greatest offense ever, because now you're a hater.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, so who then decides if these words are going to take hold? And it's really people being so prideful that they determine that every word that's spoken is about them, and it's going to change who they are somehow, or how other people feel about them, and that type of thing. It's really sad to see, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one. Sorry, I'm trying to get our comments up on the thing, but yeah, it seems it's a weird one. It seems that there's no real metric for that, and so people are, you know, articles like this come out, and it kind of shows people fumbling around in the dark about how to handle life.
Right.
And you're right. And make no mistake. Like, it's not like we're promoting or dismissing people being harassed or bullied, you know, like she maybe was doing. I don't think we have to, you know, spend time defending our position on that or something. But yeah, like you said, like her sins,
right?
You know, pretty minor in the scheme of things, you know, and she finds herself in a position of having to beg for I mean, and you said yourself, like, you don't get the impression she's worried about her career, but people, and, you know, not just her, like, we're talking about her, but people find themselves in a position where they have to beg for their lives,
or at least they feel like they have to. I don't know that it's actually a reality that you have to. I think you could almost get away with just not apologizing and wait for a hot second or two, and then you'll be fine.
Well, yeah, or maybe apologizing, but not blowing it out of not contributing to blowing it out of proportion. You know, apologizing, seeking forgiveness, and, you know, and I think on the article it says that she's reached out to some of those personally that she's, you know, wronged, which she should.
Right.
You know, it shouldn't just be left at a social media post as a blanket apology to her, people she, you know, maybe hurt.
The whole idea of doing like this large, you know, outgoing message to everybody in response to messages that were personal is just kind of. It's
like a weird pandering.
Right. Well,
cultural pandering. Oh, right. That's a good one.
Cultural pandering.
Yeah. I think you're right, though. Like, I've you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and different people that I listen to have found themselves in the crosshairs of cancel culture, and I've, you know, witnessed, you know, from afar through, like, listening to their shows and stuff. I've witnessed them, like, distance themselves from the limelight and, you know, take care of their business, and I don't know what that even means for those people. Take care of their business, and then, you know, let the culture settle down. And I don't mean wait for the culture to forget necessarily.
No.
You know, And I don't think that's what people's tactic should be if they've wronged someone, wait for things to settle down before you, no, but their tactic has been, look, take care of the business they need to, defend themselves where they need to, or, seek forgiveness where they need to, and wait for the culture to just settle down, the culture is so emotional all the time, and that's what, and they end people's careers with their emotion, but they've waited for things to settle down, and then they slowly, in small doses, reintroduce themselves back into their field of, whether it be a comedian or a lot of times it's comedians, because comedians talk about offensive stuff.
Well, that's a comedian's job.
Right.
Let's be clear.
Right.
To bring these things to light and to, put the spin on so people can see how ridiculous it is.
Right.
That this is even offensive type of thing.
And so you're like, back to your point, like maybe a different approach then is to not pander to the overblown nature of things. And take care of your business,
right?
And then just sort of go about your business,
right? And I want to clarify. I'm not advocating for just pretending like it doesn't exist, or obviously I believe that you need to. Well, not to go too biblical, but you need to confess your sins and repent of them, right? So you have to acknowledge that this took place. You have to, do the appropriate, forgiveness from that and walk away. But quite honestly, it's just an observation that I think they could almost get away with just waiting for the tide to swim the other way. Because it seems like it's just really a matter of whatever is going to pop up as the bigger attention grabber,
right?
In a short while, and it's, with the, not to keep talking about tidal waves, it's probably because it's hot and water is good, so refreshing, right? So, but it seems like there's just a huge mass of people that have offended somebody at some point in time, and of course we're going back years now and looking at tweets from like even when Twitter first came onto the scene type of thing, and saying, oh, well, look, you're a racist. Oh, look, you're homophobic. Oh, look, and it's like, okay, so in the decade since then, that's how they've acted,
Yeah, I know. People want to blanket identify someone for a past opinion or a past meaningless comment.
Right. It's so on one hand there is no redemption, right? Yeah. This is who you are, but in the same hand, a week later, okay, you're back to your former glory in your profession.
Right.
So it's like, okay, let's decide here what we're going to do for real.
Right. So yeah, I guess what's a final piece of advice you have in terms of how a believer should approach their life when it comes to forgiveness? Maybe we have a specific thought on Chrissy Teigen herself or something. The article, can we forgive her? I think the short answer would be like, yeah, you can forgive her.
Well, I mean,
if you can't forgive her, then, or if people can't be forgiven for something, then what are we?
Right. Well, first,
where are we?
First, I'd have to choose if I'm actually offended in some way.
Sure.
By that, and I don't tend to be offended by people who are bullying me. I just, understand that they don't really know who I am. Then
right.
That's not my problem. But quite honestly, if there is some type of actual offense, can people be forgiven? Absolutely. There's a metric for that. The Bible speaks out about how that forgiveness is supposed to take place, and
sort of the crux of where we are.
Exactly. It's like, where would we be if every little thing, was held against us for the rest of our lives? We're in big trouble, mister. Right.
What are we doing if we don't believe that people can be forgiven?
Right.
We're spinning our wheels here, wasting our time.
So there is a difficulty, of course, then, because, as human beings, we like to hold on to things. And so, it does make a difference how we treat people. It's like we have to have them earn our trust again, that they're not going to offend us or hurt us or sin against us in some way, and that that's the hardest process. But that's on me as the offended person at that point.
Yeah, you have to choose to.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. All right, let's move on. So I'm having a hard time getting our comments, Facebook comments. So if you've been saying something, bear with me. I'm trying to, rope you into to the discussion here. But let's move on to our next topic. So, the Five Night at Freddy's thing.
Mm-hmm.
You said you're aware of what it is, but
I'm aware. Obviously it's not something that I'm entrenched in.
Sure.
It's not.
And I didn't share the article with you, but I just saw it this morning. But this video game developer of this series, which I think has got like 9 installments or something in the video game series, and it's all on all those major platforms and consoles and whatnot. And it's a video game about basically like Chuck E. Cheese animatronics.
Yeah.
Like robots. Creepy things. Coming to life at night, like Night at the Museum status, and basically being like homicidal, and your goal is to, I don't know, survive the night, protect the restaurant, not let them do that. that's the gist of the game. This video game developer though is supposedly a Christian, and recently, the reason why he's in the news is some people, some group of people, which has turned into some bigger group of people and so on, found out that he donated to different political candidates. He's right leaning. He donated to Trump's campaign in 2016. He donated to Ben Carson or something like that, the article says. And some people found out about it, and there's a website called Open Secrets or something like that. I guess you can find but all types of different information. I don't know. I've never visited the website, but so they found out about this, and basically they are trying to cancel this guy because, his stances on this thing or that thing. I'll just read a quick little few sentences from the article. But so yeah, his name's Scott Cawthon, and he's the creator of the game. He says, I'd like to think that the last 7 years would have given me the benefit of the doubt in regards to how I treat people. But there I was, trending on Twitter for being a homophobe, getting doxxed, with people threatening to come to my house, etc. All this because I exercised my right and my duty as an American to vote and support the candidates who I felt could lead the country, so on and so forth. He says, I'm a Republican, I'm a Christian, I'm pro-life, I believe in God. I also believe in equality in science and in common sense. Despite what some may say, all of those things can go together. That's not an apology or promise to change. It's the way it's always been. If I get canceled, then I get canceled. I don't do this for the money anymore. I do it because I enjoy it. If people think I'm doing more harm than good, maybe it's time for me to step away. So, I don't know. He seems to be being canceled because, his, how he says his duties as an American and his Christian view, his biblical view, shapes the way he lives, how he weighs into things politically, and this thing and that thing, his social views here, and all these things which he's alluding to, and which people are seemingly having a problem with. And so that's sort of the article and the basis of the article. Okay. But I have a question regarding that, and I'll just read it. Is our Christianity better served bold and out in the open, unapologetic, versus silent, waiting to be discovered and unapologetic? I feel like this is a pattern where lately in the last year or something, where some person will come up in the news, and we're finding out, they had this, this Christian consensus on this one thing, even if they weren't an outspoken Christian. He is an outspoken Christian at this point. And because people are finding out who the real Scott Cawthon is, and people like him, is when, the outrage, culture mob are calling for, the heads of these people, versus when you have someone who has, been bold about it. Chris Pratt is a good example, right? Chris Pratt is bold and outspoken about his stance and what he believes in. And he seems to be doing well for himself in an industry that's...
He's taken, a few knocks, but definitely not any type of fervor type of thing, right?
And so I'm wondering, as I was reading the article and, Scott here, I'm wondering if people like him, Christians in an industry like that, that doesn't support their views, if it's better for them to be outspoken and bold versus trying or, not necessarily trying, but laying low. And, when I come up is when I'll decide to be outspoken and bold.
Right.
Like, what are your thoughts? Do you understand my question?
I understand your question.
Like, what are your thoughts on that?
I apologize. I'm trying to pull up because this brings to mind something that I covered in my Bible study, that we do every other week. Because we're doing, First Thessalonians, and I think it kind of speaks to that. So I'm just trying to see it real quick to a certain degree.
Yeah, no problem. And I've noticed it too with, like going back to comedians, for example. I've noticed it with different comedians who their past indiscretions have long been known about, There's this one comedian in particular. He's really popular stand-up comedian, and he's been in all kinds of movies throughout the last 30 years probably. His name is Joey Diaz, and I heard him talk about it on a couple podcasts, and the evidence is there to see. But he has a really bad past. He's done inappropriate things in basically all the areas someone can do in their life. But it's been well documented by him. It's been resolved. He's paid the consequences for these things. He doesn't condone the way he used to be. All these different things. But a very checkered past kind of guy, and and his comedy is it's vulgar, and it as a comedians do, it pushes the bounds and all these things.
Pushing buttons
and so
getting reactions.
It's almost like people know Joey Diaz, and so he's survived this time that we find ourselves in, He hasn't been canceled, whereas someone like Louis C.K., there's an image of Louis C.K., where it's, he's okay, or, we know there's nothing bad that we should necessarily whatever, like he's a comedian that pushes boundaries and he says crazy offensive stuff, and so whatever, but, come to find out, he has this secret life where he does all these things, and, that's the basis of what got him in trouble. And I'm wondering, from a Christian standpoint, so I'll go back to Scott Cawthon.
Yeah.
Would he have been better served to just be from the get-go, bold about his stances, unapologetic as he is now, as it comes to light, and versus, laying low, where people develop this idea of who you are, or maybe they don't even have an idea of who you are, and so it's better that way for the masses, it's an interesting position that people like him find themselves in, because it's almost like you're being tempted or whatever to flaunt your. It's almost like you have to flaunt your Christian identity in a weird way in order for people to be comfortable with it. In order for it to be at least palatable for people, even if they don't agree with you, it's at least palatable, and maybe they would dismiss you or something. Not that we're trying to be dismissed, but you know what I mean. It's a weird position that someone
it's something that I've actually seen. For many years, I've even made comment about it. There's this idea of what Christianity is, and it's really been sold by the people who have been very outspoken about the Christianity, and then they have literally taken a fall on the big issues that they've taken stance on. So I can understand that want to maybe be hesitant about saying, oh hey, I'm a Christian, and identifying with that, because the example that the public sees is so misguided or wrong oftentimes. But I did find the passage I was thinking about. It's in 1 Thessalonians 4, verses, we'll just do 9 through 12 real quick here. But we don't need to write you about the importance of loving each other, for God himself has taught you to love one another. Indeed, you already show your love for all believers through Macedonia. Even so, dear brothers and sisters, we urge you to love them even more. Make it your goal to live a quiet life, minding your own business and working with your hands, just as we instructed you before. Then people who are not Christians will respect the way you live, and you will not need to depend on others. Now, you might say, okay, so you're supposed to live a quiet life. It means you're not supposed to talk about those things.
No.
But there's a clear indication here that they know what's going on. They know who you are. They and the way that they're going to identify it, we go back to, we don't need to write you about the love that you're showing. We ask you to do that even more. So it's clear to me, personally, as a Christian, people should know. That's like a primary drive for me. So, how selfish of me to keep that for myself and to lie to all these people around me saying, I'm just a good guy.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, at my, secular job, people know that I'm a pastor. I don't bring it up often, but it's clear. It's not, backed away from. And then they take that, and when they measure up how I act and how I react and how I treat other people, praise the Lord, hopefully it redeems that thought of what being Christian is, that is out in the public, and they realize that, I don't hate you because I'm a Christian.
Right. Yeah, it's almost just like just continue to be consistent, Scott.
Really,
continue to be consistent. You're bringing it up here. I'd like to think the last 7 years would have given me the benefit of the doubt, based on how I treat people and stuff like that. And maybe the advice to him would be the same, like we were talking about with Chrissy Teigen, like, don't pander to the outrage, he's talking about retiring if it makes sense. Sure, like that's.
Well, I mean,
if that's where he feels, whatever,
if he's doing something just for
don't
because he wants to, then
don't pander to the cultural outrage. Right. Maybe just be consistent in who you are, and the people who are seeking truth will see the value in that, and the people who are shut off and whose hearts are hardened, that's where they will be, and he has to, continue to.
Well, he has to decide if he wants to wear his Christianity as a virtue signal, or if he actually wants to wear his Christianity. Because once you have that out there, you're instantly on notice that people are going to be scrutinizing what you do to see if it measures up what you supposedly believe in.
Yeah, and I don't envy people who are in that industry,
Right.
And I'm not specifically talking about video game industry. I think that'd be cool. I don't really have the mind for it, but
as a semi, completely amateur programmer myself, I can tell you there is something great with being able to see something created, just like anything that you make something. But it becomes really difficult, especially since I don't know how to type very well. So. But yeah, it becomes a grueling thing, just like anything else that you do for fun that becomes more work related, I guess.
Yeah, but I don't envy people who are necessarily in an industry that is straight up just will reject will reject your position and worldview. But yeah, they potentially have a platform for a powerful voice and at the same on the same hand or whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. It's just interesting that, again, like, how does the culture decide? It's so
moving metric.
It's such a moving metric.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Whether it be with forgiveness, whether it be with canceling, whether it be what we're gonna accept because we know you versus don't know you. I don't know. Like, is it people don't like to be caught off guard or something? Like,
well, they become secure. They become secure in who they think that you are, right? And then when they find out something that doesn't match up to that image they have on you, they're crestfallen, right? They feel like their world is shattered because it involved this image of you that may not be true.
It's just weird though, and then people they pick up their torch to destroy you. Because of that. Well,
how dare you offend them, right?
Yeah.
How dare you change
There's no
something.
limit to the amount of offense people are willing to I don't know, allow, I guess.
Well, not allow. It's the amount of offense people are, willing to take on.
It sounds so exhausting.
It is.
I'm glad I don't live that way.
No, it would be exhausting.
It literally would dominate. It has to probably dominate their thoughts every day. Like every moment of every day, like what is offending me now, like, man, do something else. Do something else in life.
Well, I mean, you see the same type of thing where it's like, okay, well, I'm no longer shopping at that company because they did this one time, or this is how that they treat people. And how long does it last before you're like, oh man, they're the only place that sells this. I guess I'm going to have to go in and
right. I mean, I get that to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Like you have to draw a line somewhere.
Well, you have to learn. You have to be committed with what your beliefs are, obviously.
Right. Like a company like Planned Parenthood, whose sole mission is to do something. Like I can understand like not supporting that company, just full stop. But another one where it's like, okay, so Target, did this with their boys and girls section, and so Target is all bad now. It's like.
Well, that's that line.
Is that sustainable?
No,
like
it's
that,
not.
That,
it's not.
That way.
It's because you're changing that metric.
Yeah.
You're choosing what you're willing to take offense at again, instead of listen. This is a clear fact, and on that clear fact, it makes sense because it contradicts what I say that I believe in, what I live for, and who I am. Making a decision based on that is different than they use that. They use that word. Oh, I can't.
Right.
I can't. Oh, sheesh. Yeah. They must hate me now.
Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. All right, let's go to the Nickelodeon thing.
Nickelodeon.
So, this is a weird one because the article you read,
Yeah, I read the article.
If you Google that, anything relating to that sort of headline that article, has, if you just punch in Nickelodeon and, let Google News fill you with pages of stuff, you don't find this article. I went like probably 8 pages deep, which is weird. And I don't know, maybe we can entertain a conspiracy theory about censorship and stuff.
Hey, maybe this is a time to use Bing instead of Google. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the only thing you find if you punch in Nickelodeon right now is like a former actor who's being charged with something because of a relationship he had.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about. Nickelodeon is in the headlines, even if it's just one.
It's in a headline.
Which Jasmine can share. Because in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
In the last 4 years, they've seen their viewership drop like, I don't know if it ever gave a percentage, but it gave like a 1 point blank million viewers per week, Nickelodeon viewers per week average, to now, 4 years on, it's, what was it? Like, it was either like 100 or 300,000 viewers per week, somewhere around there, which sounds like a lot, but in the, over the stretch of a million.
No, it's definitely dropped, yeah.
It's dropped like insane amount, according to this article. And again, I don't know if I don't know if the truth of that is being hidden from us, or if it's not corroborated, and that's why I can only find one article on it. But there is an article on it, and I forget I don't have it in front of me, but the source that they're pulling this from. And it's interesting. And my question surrounding that, James, is because the article suggests that parents are not letting their kids watch it as much, or there's just not the draw there. And it specifically, it's been in line with the introduction of all these different woke things, woke ideologies. Blue's Clues is introducing this type of character, gay or transgender, and this show with this thing, and this thing speaking to this topic or theme or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And the article is suggesting that the drop-off in viewership has been in lockstep with the introduction of these new woke things, and it's suggesting, there's an implication in that. And so my question is, first of all, like, is this evidence of, the phenomenon of the outspoken minority versus the silent majority in terms of what people, agree with, or believe or whatever? So that's like a first question, like perhaps it is. And then secondly, and this is sort of loaded in its wordage. I was trying to figure out how to best say it, but bear with me. Bear with me, guys. Do you think that there's a push or an overemphasis on, woke culture and politically correct themes over and against more seminal and traditional ones for kids, and that's why, like, that pendulum swing is why people or parents or whatever are contributing to the decline, perhaps, in something like Nickelodeon? Like, are people becoming exasperated by these things? Are people having a difficult time handling their children in light of the introduction of these new things? Struggling to just figure out how to these different companies, whether it be Disney, and we've talked about Disney this season, different shows and movies. Yeah. Loki is gender fluid now. Like, you're taking content and networks geared toward younger audiences, and you're presenting complex things to them. Is that sort of chiseling away at people, or parents at the very least? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, you used to have movies, and TV shows that coming of age things. They present, black and whites, and a lot of like Toy Story. Find me something wrong with Toy Story. Like, forgive me if I'm, whatever here. It's been a while since I saw Toy Story, but Toy Story, if I can recall, doesn't present morally gray issues or complex social issues. Like, they're black and white things, they're coming of age things, and this is what, for decades, content geared toward these audiences has been pumping out, things that are like seminal for kids, or what young audiences. But now you have Blue's Clues that presents a transgender person, and like, other than obviously they're trying to normalize that for a young audience. Absolutely. Like, that's no secret.
Right.
But
you've talked about that as well.
So right. But like, you're presenting things that are just so complex. Like, is that why we are potentially seeing a decline or a swing in the pendulum, or the beginning of a swing in a pendulum to be done with those kind of things? Like, what are your thoughts? I don't know, I'm speaking too much, but
no, you're making sure that you're communicating fully, and quite honestly, I'd like to think that it is a shift in that kind of metric where people are tired of seeing it there, but quite honestly, it's tough to pin it on that. The way that people even view media has changed so vastly over the last couple of decades that you can't necessarily attribute it to specifically to that. When you look at the fact that since I can remember, they've been indoctrinating these types of things, teaching these types of things in schools, and parents didn't have a problem still sending their kids to school. When these shows, they didn't really shy away from it. It wasn't like as bold and in your face, but there'd be like a quick mention or something.
Well,
and that type
well,
of
that's
thing.
what it is maybe nowadays too. Is
It's just in your face?
It is in your face, but, and again, maybe this is just a recurring theme of this episode, but there's whole articles and, things written about it. Look at what we're doing in Blue's Clues, everyone, like,
right.
It's no longer just a thing that, they're putting in there and trying to normalize, now it's this whole thing. And so maybe it's more on a parent's radar nowadays, to where they're like, well, I don't really know if I'm prepared to allow my kid to either view that or take that in, or I don't know if I'm prepared to debrief that. Like, so I'd rather just avoid that. I mean, like, now it's such a it is bold, the culture makes such a big deal about every move. Look at what we're doing for LGBTQ in the Proud Family on Disney. Look at what we've done with Loki here on his new show, and all these things. And so, like, maybe that's a contributing factor or something. I mean,
it could be a
whereas
contributing
before
factor.
It was just sort of like we're silently doing these things, and we're going to normalize these things,
in schools and books. I can't get away from that feeling, though, that the parenting, that we see normalized hasn't changed, and it's really like, here's your device, watch what you're going to watch, so that I can go do my own thing.
Right.
And I think that it's a hard leap from, now they're showing this agenda in this program. This thing has been added to be in your face, so now I'm going to take that tablet away because I don't want to deal with that, or now I'm not going to watch that show. I think that gives societal, the societal norm too much awareness of what's going on. Sadly, I think that it's more along the veins of media consumption is just changing. I'd like to believe that it's because people are accepting that these things are there now and they have to be more vigilant, or they're not going to support it. But I think that we're still in that same culture where it's like, as long as my child is occupied, I'm good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough. It's like a juggling act. Which is it actually going to be?
I mean, just quite honestly, like, as I'm thinking about it, like, it could just be me projecting too. Like, I mean, the article is the article. Right. I didn't write the article.
No, but it clearly states
there's an
something.
Implication, yeah.
But it does touch on the fact that it could be just because cable is dying or whatever. So there's an admittance of the fact that the metric and the way that it's brought to you is changing.
But even then, like, in the same thought process that you're talking about, that the article suggests, it opens that as a possibility for the decline, but it also says, and this is how Nickelodeon's trying to combat it,
right?
Because Paramount Plus,
they're
Nickelodeon,
on that.
Yeah, and Nickelodeon is doing all these things with shows that are 20 years old, and retconning characters to be a lesbian or this thing, or
introducing new characters, like in the Rugrats reboot,
right? And it cites that, yeah. So I don't know, like, I mean, that might be that the cable's changing and whatever, but there's still like that push in that, even though, whatever. But what I was gonna say was, it might just be the article is the article. It might just be me projecting, though, because I find myself really enjoying, and I can take in these things just fine, right? These movies like Cruella, who take a character who used to be one thing and in a good sort of character development way, give her layers, but we still have to come to a conclusion about the position she takes and what she stands for.
Did she need to have those layers is the question.
Sure. So I can view these things just fine, and I can talk about them obviously just fine, but I find myself, and I've talked about it with country music, for example, even just recently here at church.
But we had that conversation.
I find simpler things to be really enjoyable because they present black and whites in a time where we're not interested in black and whites anymore, culturally.
No, it's a degree. Everything's a degree.
Right. And, country music is hilarious and sort of a meme in that way, which it's a guilty pleasure of mine. But like movies, like I just started watching. I didn't get to finish it. I'm probably 2/3 of the way done with it. It's on Disney Plus right now. It's Luca is what it's called.
Oh, yeah. I've heard of Luca. I haven't watched it personally.
And, as I saw Luca, I didn't see a whole lot wrong with it, like morally speaking. There's a question about, the people you surround yourselves with can shape the kind of person you're going to be potentially if you allow that to happen. Or there's weird suggestions about the main character's relationship with his friend, but the story, as I see it, is it's a movie about friendship, and blah blah blah. But I actually kind of enjoyed that movie because it's not morally ambiguous or whatever, like it's simple, in a time where there's simple things are, I don't know, not being produced or something like that, like, and there's even now I'm mixing up different content in my mind, but there's even a thing in it which I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember having the thought like, oh, this is this is an interesting movie to be made, or a theme to be had in a time like now. This seems to be this seems to be awfully countercultural to right now. It's interesting that this was made, especially in a Disney movie or whatever. But yeah, I find movies or shows or music, or I don't read a lot of books, but I'm sure I'd find the same joy in books that are presenting less, complex garbage, grays, a gradient of grays, and
right.
when especially for kids that need to develop certain boundaries for life, and understand like seminal things, it's, I don't know. It could be just me projecting, but
it may be. I mean, I
can't be the only one.
I get caught up in the fact that, those types of books and movies and that type of thing, they're not made to draw those boundaries specifically. That's not their intent. Their intent is purely just for that fun and that entertainment value in that. And they don't see themselves or even hold themselves up as, oh, I'm an example to people, or I'm a metric. Some don't. The majority of them don't. They don't recognize that. It's the whole, I know I'm famous, but I shouldn't be anybody's role model type thing. It's like, you're in a profession.
Yeah, they want their cake and to eat it too in that regard.
So
they want to be able to hold that position when it's convenient, but they also want to be able to distance themselves in that position when it's inconvenient. Which is what a fortunate position to hold.
Right.
What an easy life to live.
Now I'm going to show you this is really who I am. So we get back to the
God
whole,
forbid you stick to your worldview and see it through.
That's not necessary.
Right.
When people can choose at what they're going to be offended at, I can choose as how I present myself. Right.
Yeah. So that's a decent segue. Living your truth.
Right.
We'll end on this, and this might be a short point of conversation, but Demi Lovato is now gender fluid. That's the best transition I can give you.
Yeah, that deserves something.
Demi Lovato is now gender fluid.
Right.
But I want to hone in on something she said, and Jasmine can post the article, but she said in her coming out statement, she said, "Now that I'm living my truth." Oh, there you go.
Right there.
Gold
in the
right
first statement right
Yes.
there. Yeah. Let's preface it.
Now that I'm living my truth, my art has just become that much greater because my art is a reflection of who I am. So now that I'm able to be more transparent in the world about who I am, they can see my art better and they can hear it better. And she talks about that more, living her truth and this and that. And I just want to ask, what's the problem with that, James?
Well,
where do you start? What's the problem with?
Where do you start?
What's the problem with my truth and living it?
You start right there with my truth. So that means that truth is ultimately subjective, and it's going to change depending on who the person is and where they're comfortable with it. It's a completely egocentric remark.
Sure. How's this? Does again trying to highlight the culture's shifting metrics.
Right.
Does the culture actually, set parameters for my truth and how we live it in terms of what they will accept?
Yeah, they do. They do.
And
right?
That's the great irony, right?
So, I mean, it's okay and it's perfectly acceptable. I mean, even the president's talking about how we're not supposed to discriminate against all these things so people can live who they truly are.
Right.
But yet we don't allow for, people to engage in sexual relations with animals, for example, even though that may be who they truly are.
Yeah, that's always the best tactic, right? Take that to the extreme,
people
Demi Lovato.
Who are psychopaths and want to murder and kill. No, we can't let them do that.
Right, why?
Well, because...
But why though? Why though, guys?
Though it may be who they truly are.
Yeah. Why can Demi Lovato live her truth and experience the beauty and liberation in that? And, her art can now be its full form because she's living her truth. Why is that okay? Audience that will listen now and in the future. Why is that okay? But as James said, a serial killer, a serial rapist, all the extremes you can think about, why is that not okay? because if that's their truth and it allows them to be liberated to experience, the best part of who they am and what they can produce, why is that not okay?
Well, because
but Demi Levato can, and we should celebrate.
Well, they're going to say, because those types of things, it's a straw man, because they're actually affecting other people by their things. But that doesn't go for bestiality. Let's be clear.
Okay.
But still, we don't allow that type of thing. We have a sense that that's not right.
Where does that sense come from?
I don't know. Right? Society says, I don't know. Where does it come from?
We do know, though.
Yes, we do.
Society likes to suppress that truth, right? And suppress who they were created in the image
absolutely.
of. And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, society has a problem with certain my truths, but not other my truths. Because a lot of things go against what we know to be true. Like murder and, heinous sexual things, whether it's with animals or, I don't know, inanimate objects. Like
I have read a documentary or seen a documentary on, relations with a car. So there's weird stuff.
Oh yeah, there was an episode of that on Strange Addictions, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it was someone that liked to do that with their car.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really weird, but yeah, it's a flawed worldview, just outright, and it's annoying.
No, it's greatly annoying.
It's annoying that culture, again, with their shifting metrics and inconsistencies, demands that we celebrate Demi Lovato's gender fluidity and the beauty in her truth, but just can't allow for consistency in that.
No.
And it's...
continuing on
it seems so blatantly obvious, just the flawed...
There's a video circulating as well of a young teen who's identifying as gender fluid, and it's one of those videos where they have conversations with themselves as if they're a different character, asking the questions.
Okay.
Well, how can I identify what gender you are today? And it comes down to what color bracelet they were wearing.
Oh, jeez.
And
keep up.
Right. Yeah. So and what is the very fact that you've now identified based on bracelet, that totally undoes the very concept of really.
Oh yeah, it's just like a weird.
Right.
It's paradoxical or antithetical or whatever, hypocritical.
It's not consistent.
I don't know what
it's not
word you use there, but utterly inconsistent.
Right.
Yeah.
Utterly.
This is how I choose to identify today, but the point of your position was that you don't want to be identified.
Exactly.
You don't want to be pigeonholed.
You don't want to be identified by a specific characteristic.
Yeah. But you're saying identify me as a certain characteristic.
Yes.
Oh, man. And then, on top of that, you're canceled if you can't keep up.
Right.
You're canceled if you can't keep up.
It's not sustainable. It's not.
Fired from your job if you can't. If you misstep in your wordage. You have a lawsuit against you if that. That kind of thing. Like, oh man, we're just killing ourselves. We're just crushing our societies.
We are creating a society where everybody just better stay in their homes and not
it's safer
participate
just to stay at home
in anything that goes outside that.
Get off your social media. Don't have friends. Don't go outside because purely by walking on the sidewalk, you've probably misstepped metaphorically and physically.
You looked at somebody in a menacing way.
Yeah, that look was toxic masculinity. That was a look of toxic masculinity. It's just not sustainable. It's not a sustainable thing we're setting up as a culture. But yeah,
it's a sad thing, and it is consuming. It you always have to then be worried that somebody is going to choose to be offended by what you have to say, and so do you live your life censoring every single word, hoping that nobody's going to take offense at it?
No, you don't. Short answer. You don't, guys. Don't live your lives that way. What's the passage you could 1 Thessalonians
4, 9 through 12.
There you go. We're gonna end on that note, guys. I was telling James before we went on air, I find it exhausting that we have to discuss these things time and time again. But the truth is, this is not changing anytime soon. You know, like this is the culture doing what it does and going deeper and deeper down that hole. And so we have to continue to, continue to expose it for what it is.
Be awake in our minds.
Yeah.
Right. Dare we co-opt that word and call ourselves woke because we're understanding things
yes,
through a clear lens.
Take a woke back.
Right. That's we have a clearer lens because we have an absolute truth that's spelled out.
Right. All right, guys. Well, obviously, thanks, James, for filling in. And this has been episode number 6 of season 4 of Culture and Sanity. And hope you guys find some value in it now, in the future, whenever you listen to it, whenever it finds you. And stay tuned for more of what we got going on. And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
The views presented in this program are not meant to express the specific views of the Levato Bible Fellowship. You are listening to the Vigilance